acting poor to get rich. Sounds absurd, but that's exactly the paradox that separates those who quietly prosper from those who are always trying to prove something to the world. The uncomfortable truth is simple. The more you try to look rich now, the further away you get from the kind of wealth that really matters. And maybe you've already felt this yourself. You work hard, earn your money, but small choices, little impulses, and that invisible pressure to show you're doing well end up draining it all. And at the end of the month, the feeling is always the same. You're running, but going nowhere. People think financial freedom comes later, when there's money left over, when the time is right, until they realize that those who truly build wealth don't live in excess. They live with strategy. And that mental shift changes everything, including how you see your own habits. In today's video, you're going to understand why living below your means, by choice, multiplies your power, your clarity, and the speed at which you accumulate real money. Stay until the end, because the most important part is exactly the point almost no one is brave enough to face. 1. The foundation of the paradox: living broke to build wealth. Think about it. Most people want to look rich before actually building wealth, and that's exactly what keeps them stuck. When you choose to act poor, in the sense of controlling spending and prioritizing value, you create a conscious scarcity mindset, not an emotional one. It's a strategy used by millionaires who understand that discipline comes before abundance. This type of behavior reduces impulses and increases clarity. It's the first building block for those who want to master money instead of being mastered by it. The most interesting part is that acting poor has nothing to do with deprivation. It's about self-control. A 2020 study from the University of Chicago, conducted with 1,100 participants, analyzed how conscious restriction affects financial decisions. They tracked the volunteers for 8 weeks and found that those who set clear limits on non-essential spending increased their self-control by 42%. In other words, when you choose to set limits, instead of life forcing them on you, your brain switches to strategy mode instead of survival mode. Now let's make this practical. A simple exercise I teach entrepreneurs is the self-imposed monthly allowance. You set a fixed amount for anything non-essential: coffee, takeout, clothes, subscriptions, and for 30 days, you track every expense like an investor analyzing a business. This method reveals something powerful. 80% of what you buy isn't a need. It's emotional anesthesia. And when you realize that for yourself, self-control stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like freedom. But there's a silent enemy in this process: the culture of instant consumption. In the US, the urge to show wealth now creates debt just as fast as it triggers dopamine. Financed cars, vacations on credit, new gadgets every month, all to maintain an image that doesn't build real assets. Meanwhile, those who actually got rich did the opposite. People who lived for years in cheap places, drove regular cars, and reinvested every extra dollar ended up building real freedom while everyone else was chasing appearances. Here's the key point. When you live below your financial standard, it's not about hiding from the world. It's about training your brain to operate with logic, not emotion. The lower the financial noise, the more clarity you have to make strategic decisions. This reduces anxiety, improves your ability to delay gratification, and puts you on the same mental path used by investors and business founders who must think long-term. Conscious frugality strengthens your decision-making muscle, and decisions are what create wealth. And here's the final reflection. Living broke by choice is completely different from being broke with no other option. When you choose to restrict, you're accumulating power. You're training patience, vision, and focus. 3 skills that define who prospers. Few people do this because it takes courage to go against the social urge to prove something to others. But those who understand this paradox build wealth in silence, while the rest perform wealth in public. And the difference between the two gets massive over time. 2. The value of strategic frugality, not deprivation. Strategic frugality isn't about living small. It's about thinking big. It's when you choose to direct your energy, time, and money toward what actually builds wealth, instead of spreading it thin on short-term pleasures. A study published in 2022 on ResearchGate, conducted with 680 adults across 3 countries, analyzed the impact of conscious frugality on the quality of financial decisions. They used weekly tracking and real behavioral analysis, not just self-reporting. And the results showed a significant drop in debt risk and a consistent increase in the ability to build savings. In other words, frugality is financial performance, not punishment. The confusion starts when people mix up frugality with self-imposed poverty. Strategic frugality means prioritizing value and optimizing resources. Self-imposed poverty means rejecting everything, even what could help you grow. A frugal person buys less, but invests more. A person stuck in a scarcity mindset avoids even opportunities that could multiply their money. Here's the contrast. While scarcity shrinks your vision, frugality expands it. Frugality doesn't make you smaller. It gives you choice, flexibility, and power over your decisions. And this is where you realize how values shape behavior. Someone who operates with strategic frugality doesn't think, I can't afford this. They think, does this make sense for my future? That filter rewires your mindset and puts you in the same game as people who build wealth over time. They don't avoid spending. They assess the emotional and financial ROI before every decision. This preserves energy, reduces anxiety, and strengthens your leadership over your own life. To make this more tangible, there's a simple yet extremely effective tool: the minimum viable rule. Before buying anything, ask yourself 3 questions. Does this bring lasting value? Is it a want or a need? And if it's a want, will it still make sense 7 days from now? This pause disarms impulses and teaches your brain to operate with logic, not lack. After a week, 70% of your wants disappear, and what remains usually has real value. This small habit shifts the flow of your money without dramatic effort. This approach creates an interesting psychological effect. You start to realize that wealth doesn't come from cutting back. It comes from intention. People who master strategic frugality have a calmer, freer mindset because they know exactly why they spend and why they save. There's no guilt, no extremes. It's a functional balance that many millionaires cite as a key factor in maintaining stability, even through unpredictable phases of life. When you control your purpose, you control your direction. And maybe the most powerful point of all is this: strategic frugality gives you access to opportunities that people constantly chasing impulses never even see. The lighter you live today, the heavier you can invest in your future. And that logic, as simple as it sounds, is what separates those who thrive from those who are always putting out fires. It's not about restriction, it's about creating space for growth. And few people truly understand just how much that changes everything. 3. Why clipping coupons or saving pennies isn't enough. There's a common illusion, thinking that chasing coupons, saving spare change, and cutting back on coffee will make you rich. It might help build discipline, but it doesn't build real wealth. And interestingly, critics of extreme frugality are right about one thing: saving $5 a month won't change your life. What really moves the needle are bigger levers: income, assets, skills that act as multipliers. Most people hide behind small cuts because it's more comfortable than facing the real question: how do I increase my value in the market? And that's exactly where the concept of acting poor takes on a deeper meaning. It wasn't created to keep you tight on money. It exists to free up capital. Capital that needs to be redirected towards something that grows, not wasted on nothing. When you cut an expense, that's not a win yet. The real win only happens when the money you saved turns into investment, accumulation, building. The most common mistake? Saving. Only to blow that same money on something useless a few weeks later. It's like running in place and thinking you're moving forward. Wealth operates on a different logic. People who prosper use frugality only as a first step, the bottom rung of a much taller ladder. After saving comes the conscious action: investing the surplus, increasing income, buying time, gaining skills, building assets. Millionaires don't think, "How much can I save today?" They think, "How can this money work for me over the next 20 years?" The difference between those two questions can completely change someone's financial future. Now think about the impact of that mental shift. When you stop focusing on pennies and start focusing on leverage, your financial behavior changes completely. You begin to see courses, books, mentors, equipment, and tools not as expenses, but as growth engines. And that psychological shift moves you into the arena where real opportunities live, far from where people are still arguing over 10% coupons. Growth demands vision, and vision doesn't come from small math. That's the contrast most people miss. Those stuck on micro savings are always in defense mode, trying to survive. Those who learn to turn every bit of savings into an asset switch to offense, aiming to expand. In a 2021 financial behavior study published on Medium, researchers found that individuals focused only on small cost-cutting had low wealth growth over 5 years, while those applying leverage strategies experienced exponential gains. The long-term difference is huge. In the end, the central point is simple. Saving pennies can teach you discipline, but it will never give you freedom. Freedom comes when your money works harder than you do. Acting poor is useful, but only if it's temporary and intentional. After that, the real game is about multiplication. And multiplication takes vision, courage, and strategy, not coupons. Want to prosper? Stop thinking about how much you save. Start thinking about how much you build. 4. The time paradox: sacrificing now to master the future. Imagine someone driving the same simple car for 8 years, while everyone around them upgrades every 2. On the outside, it might look like a lack of ambition, but on the inside, it's pure strategy. Stories like this are common among people who've built real wealth. They gave up immediate pleasures to invest early, even when no one understood. And when those investments started multiplying, the outcome looked like luck. But it wasn't. It was vision. They weren't sacrificing comfort. They were buying freedom in advance. That's the power of a mental flip. Turning the idea of, "I deserve to spend everything I earn," into, "I deserve a future where money doesn't control me." This mindset takes calm, maturity, and the ability to sit with temporary discomfort. And interestingly, that patience doesn't lower your quality of life. It improves it. Because when you operate in short-term mode, you live under pressure. When you operate with a long-term view, you breathe easier, think better, decide better. This shift in perspective puts you in the same game as millionaires, not the game of constant anxiety. And here's something few people realize. Every impulsive purchase doesn't just cost what you paid, it costs what that money could have earned. Once you understand that, your view of opportunity changes completely. A $300 pair of sneakers isn't just a pair of sneakers. It's the investment that never happened, the return that never came, the wealth that never grew. That invisible math separates people driven by short-term desire from those driven by purpose. To make this practical, there's a powerful tool, the 5-year impact map. Take your monthly non-essential spending, unused subscriptions, repeated little luxuries, automatic purchases, and project how much each of those could grow if invested for 5 years. Add compound interest, a basic asset, a simple strategy. In just a few weeks, you'll start seeing money as energy that can grow, not something that just disappears. This exercise transforms your emotional relationship with spending. The psychological effect is immediate. You start to feel how every decision you make today shapes the reality you'll live tomorrow. And that triggers a sense of internal leadership, as if you've taken the controls of your financial life. It's not about living in deprivation, it's about redirecting your energy. It's amazing how, by cutting back on excess by choice, you actually increase your sense of control, clarity, and confidence. This mental state reduces anxiety and boosts your ability to make the right decisions under pressure. And what's most interesting is how this mindset compounds. At first, the sacrifice feels big, then it becomes a habit, and over time, it becomes identity. Someone who thinks about the future with responsibility, clarity, and strategy. When you learn to give up a little now, you gain power later. Power to choose, to negotiate, to invest, to create. That's the real-time paradox. The more you hold back in the present, the faster you reach a future most people never even get close to. Want to master tomorrow? It starts with how you act today. 5. Smart frugality versus scarcity. Mindset. The psychological risk of being permanently broke. There's a very thin line between being strategically frugal and falling into the emotional trap of living as if you're always on the edge of collapse. When someone cuts everything, avoids every expense, and turns saving into an identity, the result is no longer discipline. It becomes chronic stress. Research published on Medium in 2021 showed that individuals who practiced extreme frugality, the kind that suppresses even essential spending, experienced higher anxiety and reduced healthy risk-taking, which blocked both personal and financial growth. That's not saving, it's self-sabotage disguised as caution. The problem is that a scarcity mindset creates an emotional cycle that's hard to detect. You start out saving out of wisdom, but quickly begin avoiding investments that could accelerate your life. Too risky, too expensive. I can't right now. But that I can't becomes permanent. Before you know it, you're saying no to courses, health, networking, and opportunities that could completely change your trajectory. The person thinks they're being responsible, but in practice, they're shrinking their own potential. Smart frugality follows a completely different logic. It doesn't exclude spending, it filters it. It doesn't say, I can't spend. It asks, does this spending help me become who I want to be? This mindset preserves resources while building capacity. A frugal person buys fewer things, but buys more freedom. Someone with a scarcity mindset buys fewer things, and also buys less future. The difference is in the impact, not the appearance. And that balance is essential to maintaining both financial and mental health. When you make conscious cuts, your body feels lightness, clarity, direction. When you cut out of fear, your body feels tension. It even affects your performance at work. You take fewer risks, negotiate poorly, make defensive decisions, and see the world as a hostile place. That kind of mindset never produces wealth. It only maintains survival. Prosperity requires internal space, both emotional and financial. That's why one of the most effective practices is to review your financial decisions quarterly. Ask yourself, are my savings getting me closer to my goals or just keeping me stuck? This simple check reduces automatic behavior and forces you to assess whether your discipline is still aligned with growth, not contraction. Sometimes the answer will be to adjust. Sometimes it will be to invest more in yourself. Sometimes it will be to let go of an excessive need for control that's holding you back. What's most interesting is how this kind of self-reflection builds financial maturity. You begin to understand that smart frugality is a bridge, not a prison. It prepares you for growth, not for a life of restriction. And once you find that balance, your relationship with money transforms. You save with precision, invest with courage, and live with a sense of security that doesn't come from how much you cut, but from how much you grow. Once you master this mindset, frugality stops being a burden and becomes an advantage. 6. How acting poor drives smart financial decisions. When you consciously restrict your spending, something powerful happens. Your priorities become visible. Suddenly, what seemed urgent reveals itself as irrelevant, and what truly matters, financial security, savings, investments becomes crystal clear. This voluntary limitation acts as a test of internal leadership. You begin to see which choices come from your identity and which come from impulse, social pressure, or the need for validation. This process simplifies your mind and strengthens your sense of focus. That mental filter cuts out poor decisions and eliminates expenses that drain energy. And the impact goes far beyond saving money. People who live with financial purpose, not consumer instinct, develop a more stable emotional baseline. They feel less anxious during emergencies because they have margin, they have direction, and that mental state even improves professional performance. You negotiate better, think more clearly, and act with less fear. There are serious studies backing this. Research on living frugal published on ResearchGate, using real behavioral tracking, found that individuals who adopted conscious frugality were less likely to go into debt and more consistent in building savings. That's no coincidence. When you cut the noise from your financial life, your brain begins to operate with more logic and less emotion. Saving becomes a strategy for stability, and then a foundation for growth. And to turn that clarity into action, there's one simple rule: pay yourself first. The practice of automatic saving, sending a portion of your income directly into investments before spending anything else, is one of the most effective tools used by financially high-performing people. It removes the risk of relying on willpower and puts your future on autopilot. Your money grows because you've taken emotion out of the equation. On top of that, acting poor with intention trains you to spend with purpose. That means every dollar goes through a filter. Does this contribute to my long-term goals? This mindset eliminates purchases made from boredom, comparison, or impulse. And as you master that habit, you realize that true freedom doesn't come from buying everything you want, but from not needing to justify your spending to anyone, not even yourself. The most transformative part is realizing how this mindset builds a long-term trajectory. By acting poor by choice, you gain a strategic advantage most people overlook. You build a foundation while others build appearances. Your money grows, your confidence increases, and your financial life becomes lighter and lighter, not because you're living in restriction, but because you're living with intention. 7. When acting poor becomes the springboard to wealth, the transition plan. The biggest mistake is thinking that acting poor is a permanent way of life. It's not. It's a strategic phase, a kind of financial incubator. It's the ideal cycle followed by those who truly grow. First, you live frugally. Then, you redirect those savings into assets, investments, or small ventures. Your income starts to rise, your net worth expands, and from there, you reassess your lifestyle with more freedom. This cycle repeats, but always at a higher level. That's how ordinary people build extraordinary wealth. To turn that logic into something actionable, think in clear phases. Phase 1. Cut non-essentials consciously, reducing noise and freeing up capital. Phase 2. Build a solid emergency fund. It's the psychological cushion that lets you think calmly. Phase 3. Invest consistently, even small amounts, because the habit is what matters. Phase 4. Increase income through skills, career, or a lean business. Phase 5. Multiply assets using what you've already built as leverage. Each phase connects to the next. None of them are permanent. This structure gives you direction, but it also builds identity. You stop being someone trying to save just to survive and become someone saving to scale. That changes how you see yourself. Instead of feeling like you're losing something by cutting back, you start to realize you're gaining space to grow. And here's a detail most people miss. Every dollar you hold on to today isn't a sacrifice. It's a seed. And seeds aren't glamorous, but they have a future. Of course, this journey demands honesty. The frugal phase can be uncomfortable. Many times you'll see people around you seemingly living with more freedom while you're choosing to hold back. And that's where most people give up. Those who don't understand the plan think you're living small. But those who do understand the game know you're buying time, buying margin, and buying autonomy. It's a temporary trade-off that becomes a permanent advantage. One more important point: the frugal phase cannot become an emotional prison. You need to know when to transition. When your emergency fund is in place, when your investments gain momentum, when your income grows, that's the time to adjust your lifestyle with maturity. Not to show off, but to align comfort with responsibility. That kind of transition, done thoughtfully, creates a real sense of prosperity. No guilt, no excess, just balance. At its core, the goal was never to live like you're poor. The goal is to live free. Acting poor is just the initial lever, the springboard that gives you the lift into a life where you can choose, decide, and direct your path without fear. The early phase is just the beginning. Real wealth begins when you finally realize you're ready to move up, and to do it knowing exactly how you got there.